Hello, dear friends. With us is Kabbalist Dr. Michael Laitman. Hello. We're talking about the Book of Prophets from the series Secrets of the Eternal Book. We already went over 7 chapters from the book of Yehoshua ben Nun. The city of Jericho is already taken. It's the first main city, probably. Dr. Laitman, yeah, at the entrance to the land of Israel. And so the Creator told Joshua, take the city, execute everyone, just don't take from the doomed, from the devoted thing. If you can explain a bit, what does it mean not to take from the doomed, that being the greatest possible sin? Anything which anyone or anything within which there is an egoistic desire that can't be corrected, Semion. And if you take it, you can't correct it. Dr. Laitman simply sticks to you, and that's that. It's like some kind of disease or something. It's something that you can't get rid of. That's it, Semion. On our previous show, we said that our world's practically based on it. We take that which sticks to us, and we can't get rid of it, Dr. Laitman. We start thinking that it's ours. That's the worst thing, Semion. That's the worst thing. And it's not ours, Dr. Laitman. It wasn't ours once, but once you stick to it, that's it. It becomes yours. Semion, and there, it says that there was an attain who sinned, he took from the doomed, and this is what I wanted to ask. He took this garment, clothing, 200 shekels of silver, money meaning, and gold, riches. What does it mean to take this clothing, garment, Dr. Laitman? A garment or clothing is something that it's whatever you can wear, something that covers for something, and then what you'll get is the cover and not what's on the inside. Simeon, it's like a magical garment that you wear, and immediately you become a complete egoist, Dr. Laitman, and you don't understand it. Simeon, what is money then? Dr. Laitman, money is kesef. Kesef comes from the word kisufa, kisui, a cover. It's the same like the garment, clothing, only it's much more cunning. It buys you, and you start working for it. You find money, you get money, you conquer, you take away, it doesn't matter how, but it seems to you that it's yours. But really, you belong to it, to the money. Simeon, that's beautiful. That's the doomed, Dr. Laitman. Yeah? And gold, this is the highest thing. Zahav in Hebrew, coming from zehav, like a dog barking that swallows everything. Simeon. So gold, it symbolizes what? Dr. Laitman, it is the manifestation of complete blindness, that a person's completely blind about what's ahead. If he falls on gold, then that's it. He is doomed. No way back. Simeon, but still, there was the golden calf. We went through these things, Dr. Laitman. Doesn't matter. We didn't finally correct it. The final correction will occur only in the last generation, the last corrections. Simeon, but this is what it is about, that you're building a golden calf for yourself. And in total, all of this is the doomed, the devoted thing. And the Creator says that they have to be punished, and Achan has to be executed, and not only he, but also surrounding, and to burn that garment, and to cover him with stones. Now, you always explain that there are 4 executions of the ego. By spear, by stoning, burning, and strangling. We'll talk about these executions later on, but what does it mean to execute, Dr. Laitman? Well, it is to perform a certain action on it, after which it will not lure a person or conquer him. Simeon, you're talking about the ego. Dr. Laitman, yeah? It means that I have to kill it inside myself this way. Simeon, so I have to direct this execution at myself. Dr. Laitman, yeah, it's all on yourself. Simeon, but I have to see the ego. Dr. Laitman, otherwise you won't be able to enter the land of Israel. Jericho is at the entrance, on the border to the land of Israel. Simeon, so it is a kind of advancement for a man for him to see his ego. Dr. Laitman, of course. And this is something that exists in everyone, and everyone has to perform this correction on themselves. Simeon, so you have to be happy about it. Dr. Laitman, of course. It comes from the Creator. So you're not... what exactly are you doing then? Simeon, if you separate it from yourself, Dr. Laitman, if you separate it, you do. If you don't, you don't. So I have to feel this in myself and separate it from myself. Dr. Laitman, but by no means is it about people killing each other or something like that. Not at all. Simeon, there's a lot written about it. That there's rivers of blood, Dr. Laitman. No. All that does not exist. It is all man's correction over himself. Simeon, so it's all man's way to the land of Israel. This is what it talks about. Simeon, and the Lord said unto Joshua, Fear not, neither be thou dismayed. Take all the people of war with ye, and rise, go up to Ai. See, I have given into thy hand the king of Ai, and his people, and his city, and his land. Joshua hears this, and he takes his people to the city of Ai. He sends an ambush, and he says, I will draw the inhabitants of the city of Ai upon myself. It will look as if I'm running away. The warriors will enter the city and will take it. That's how it was. Joshua, he lured out all the people of Ai after himself. They started running after him, and it says, and they left the city open and pursued after Israel. And the Lord said unto Joshua, stretch out the spear that is in thy hand toward Ai, for I will give it into thy hand. And Joshua stretched out the spear that he had in his hand toward the city, and the ambush arose quickly out of their place, and they ran as soon as he had stretched out his hand, and they entered the city and took it and hasted and set the city on fire. What does this mean, Dr. Laitman? This is exactly when a person stretches out his hand in order to conquer his ego and to bend this entire general ego under him, called city, nation, all of these things. Simeon, so Moses, he held the staff in his hand, so that's the stretch out hand. And then, as Dr. Laitman, we're not talking about a nation here. What it means, what it talks about, speaks about, is what the Torah talks about here is it talks about a single person, an individual, and it explains that this is how you have to act under such and such, in such and such a way. The Torah gives an example of how are you supposed to defeat the ego inside yourself, to overcome it, and that's what it's all about. It's not geography or nothing, only man versus his own ego. This is the only thing the Torah talks about. What's the purpose in killing a two-legged creature? It's not about that at all. Simeon, and taking the city and destroying it, it's destroying your egoistic desire inside yourself, Dr. Laitman. Exactly. And such cities, countries, and there's the entire universe inside the person, Simeon. And why does it say that he has to stretch out his hand with a spear and hold it out to have strength? Dr. Laitman, so that by no means will you let go of this action or opportunity, miss out on it, that you actually want to conquer this egoistic quality inside yourself. Simeon, that's the hand with the spear. Okay, so you're fighting your own ego. Another question, the city is taken by deceit. Dr. Laitman, yeah, you can do it anyway. There are no laws here. It's taken by deception. There are no gentleman laws here, nothing. Simeon, why by deception? Why do you work with the ego by deception and can't work with it directly, Dr. Laitman? Because the ego is right. It wants to get pleasure. It itself doesn't cheat anyone. It brings a person to pleasure, fulfills him. That's why it's so hard for us to reject it, because it's right. And here we have to somehow act the other way around. Simeon, to lure out the warriors of the city of Ai in us, Dr. Laitman. Yeah, and what you get is that all the time we're acting indirectly in a bad way, Simeon. It's the entire Torah. It says about that the hand of the one son is taken, the father blesses. There are all the time these kinds of actions. That's how you have to work with the ego, Dr. Laitman. Of course, Simeon. So one of the laws of the last generation is to deceive your ego, Dr. Laitman. Otherwise, you can't win. You can't conquer it. Simeon, can you find out what's true, what's not here? Dr. Laitman, what's true is what comes from the Creator and what one has to acquire. And the lie is anything that works against it. It's all relative. What's true, what's not. Who said that to take is bad and to give is good? There are completely different philosophies, methods, where it's not so. And they speak from the heart very truthfully. Simeon, so the truth is achieved only if there's connection to the Creator. Dr. Laitman, if the Creator, he appears above that, saying that this is the truth, and that we have to accept it. And at the end of our actions, we discover that that's the truth. Simeon, how do you hear that this is what the Creator says, Dr. Laitman? You have to start acting as He says, meaning to start acting anti-ego and against the ego, and then in an anti-egoistic way, and then gradually you start seeing a deep inner spiritual meaning in it. Simeon, is it correct that if my ego feels bad, then that's good? Dr. Laitman, well, actually, that's true. But it doesn't mean self-mortification or tormenting yourself or anything. Simeon, what do you mean then? Dr. Laitman, you have to work with the ego very nicely in a gentle, pleasant, direct way without deceiving it in general. The deception has to be based on that I deceive it as I deceive my child when I give him sweet medicine, only this way. And therefore, I don't feel that I'm deceiving, that I'm, breaching anything here. Simeon, and when we say that you have to eventually hate your ego, what do we mean? Dr. Laitman, you have to hate the ego because it is directed against the Creator, that it is standing on the way between myself and the Creator, and therefore I hate it. But only because of that. Simeon, is it possible to connect these two concepts? To hate and at the same time to respect the ego. Dr. Light, to respect necessarily. The ego is considered an angel, a force of the Creator. So there's something that you can't escape. Simeon, so these two concepts connect eventually. Hate, but respect. Dr. Laitman, of course, and you have to learn how to correctly work with it. Simeon, like you said, like with a child, I like that, like giving a child candy, and he does something. And then, as a result of all the inhabitants of Ai were destroyed, and the warriors that were lured out of the city, all in all 12,000 people, men and women. Why men and women? Dr. Laitman, these are two lines. There are cities where you can execute only the male population and leave the female population, or not all the female population, but only virgins. Simeon, what does that mean? Dr. Laitman, in every case, you can annex to yourself different sizes of the ego to absorb it inside yourself in order to use it correctly. It's entering the land of Israel before they have conquered anything, meaning that they don't have a common screen yet or anything. They're not under the influence of the quality of bestowal yet. Simeon, so not to use this desire completely, meaning the city of Ai. And then it says, and Joshua Until he destroyed all the inhabitants of Ai, he did not put his hand down. And what does it mean that he stretched out his hand and didn't put it down? Semion, it's like his intention, Dr. Laitman, it's like his intention to completely eradicate those desires, so much so that there will be nothing left of them that you can use at some point. Semion, and it was said about the city of Jericho, now about the city of Ai, that to this day it's a desolated place. Dr. Laitman, not about Jericho. Semion, well, yeah, right, but it means that you don't use the ego to this day, Dr. Laitman. Never ever. It is such a part of the ego that is corrected by its eradication. Simeon, and the king of Ai was brought to Joshua. It says so, and the king of Ai, he hanged on a tree until eventide, and as soon as the sun was down, Joshua commanded that they should take his carcass down from the tree and cast it at the entering of the gate of the city and raise thereon a great heap of stones that remains there unto this day. What does this mean? What is this, Dr. Laitman? Well, strangling isn't the greatest execution because to burn means to completely eradicate this egoistic desire in yourself. But to hang, it's only to deprive him of his animate life. Simeon, I also remember that on Purim, they also hung him on the tree. So what does it mean to hang someone on a tree? Dr. Laitman, it's one of the executions where a person is deprived of any possibility to be spiritually born. Simeon, and then that it says that he was cast at the entering of the gate, and there's a heap of stones put on him. What are these monuments built all the time? Dr. Laitman, that's interesting because why make such monuments for the ego, right? But the thing is that it is done not for the ego, but for man. For man in whom there is this hung, stoned, doesn't matter how, ego, and that you have to remember about so that it will never repeat itself. Simeon, so it's done for the generation. Dr. Laitman, of course, not for it. What is it? That's it. But it's a desire in a person. That's called the owner of the city, and it's killed. That's it. Simeon, I'd like to compare it to the monuments that are built now. It's an inverted kind of state because now there are different monuments for victory, a monument for someone who's still alive. Well, there are plenty of monuments going around. Dr. Laitman, that's really... Simeon, it came from here probably, Dr. Laitman. No, it existed even before in mankind, even before these times. People like to glorify themselves. The ego wants it, even though that nothing's left of it. But this is precisely why it wants to glorify itself. And Simeon, there's like these signs. Here lived such and such. Dr. Laitman, yeah, I have different things. Simeon, why is Judaism against monuments? Dr. Laitman, because all in all, it's forbidden to remember a person. You have to remember his actions. And here too, not his actions in the past, but what he has passed on to us for now. And therefore, our attitude towards it is completely different. But it's already common in this generation that we take photos, we keep them, different pictures, portraits. But really, all this, no need for it. I never saw in my teacher's home any images, neither of his father or of anyone else, nothing. These are all modern, different habits. Simeon, can we say that this is a kind of idolatry, Dr. Laitman? Of course, to some extent. What does it give me if I look at some face of someone? Simeon, what? Dr. Laitman, it shouldn't be this way. You're replacing inner closeness with these correct states to something external. Simeon, so we can't say that this is coming closer at heart. Dr. Laitman, no. Simeon, it's something internal. Dr. Laitman, of course. We can say a lot about this, but Simeon, what's the difference between the pile of stones and an image? Dr. Laitman, the pile of stones reminds us that this is where we finished him off. And the image, it shows us that he is still among us. Simeon, here we glorify him. Okay. So this is how you work with the ego. Here you glorify him, and here you finish him off. I like that. Simeon, and after a victory, there is a monument built on the mountain of Eival. One of its interpretations is evil, Eival. Why is this monument put on evil? Dr. Laitman, where else? Where is the temple built? Simeon, on evil too? Dr. Laitman, of course, it is all made in order to rise above the ego, so that everything that exists beneath it. Simeon, so the temple is built on trash. Dr. Laitman, on evil. Simeon, yeah, that's better, but on evil. And then it's built on evil, but on corrected evil, right? Meaning it's corrected, and Dr. Laitman, thanks to the building. Simeon, it seemed to me that it's corrected, and then you build. Dr. Laitman, it's something that you can't correct. There's a quality that's completely opposite to it, that's built, and then that fundamental evil works the direction of good. Simeon, you're talking about connection all the time, about Dr. Laitman. Of course, one over the other. Nothing disappears, and even if we say that something is killed, it's the evil inclination that's killed, but the thing itself remains and works in direction of good. Simeon, when we build something, the ego rises and we connect above it. It grows more, we connect above it. That's how it works. Dr. yeah, that's on our way. But in general, of course, everything has to be in such a way that the ego's below, and on it the temple's built. Simeon, and then it says, as Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded the children of Israel, as it is written in the book of the law of Moses, an altar of whole stones, over which no man hath lift up any iron, was built there, etc., etc. What does that mean? Uncut stones, Dr. Laitman. Right. Stones, meaning that we have taken the levav and the stony heart, our egoistic stones, qualities, and from them, without changing anything in them, we've built altars upon which we have already risen to the quality of bestowal, of love. That's how we correct them. Simeon, the stony hearts. So you take the uncut stones, Dr. Laitman. Actually, what's taken is the simplest, most primitive, egoistic, in order to build holiness upon it. Simeon, and if I take a cut stone, Dr. Laitman, no. If it's cut, meaning that you're already trying to implement it the way it's convenient to you. You have to take it as it is by nature. Simeon, okay, we have a bit more left. And afterwards, he read all the words of the Torah, the blessings and cursings. There was not a single word from what Moses commanded, which Joshua read not before all the congregation of Israel, with the women and the little ones and the strangers, etc. What does it mean to read the entire Torah? It's not simple, Dr. Laitman. It's not the book, right? Simeon, what then? Dr. Laitman, what it means is all the commandments that people have to keep if they wish to advance in direction of the Creator. This is the purpose of the Torah and man's life, our existence on earth. And so this is what he read. This is what he explained. Actually, it's not serious work. It's not big work, it's only the precept of love another as yourself. Semion, just do that. Dr. Laitman, yeah, you don't need anything else. It includes everything else. Semion, so thank you very much.